Even though we've been pointing to these Black Lives Matter protests as organized by communists using communist tactics, it's nice when one of the founders of the movement actually admits to it on video. We'll look at this revelation and suggest ways you can help in this episode of Activate America. Over these last several weeks, we've pointed out how these lawless protests are being used as an excuse to further a far-left agenda to throw off authority and create chaos. The protests have been expanded to go from demanding action against the police to ripping down Confederate statues, as well as any historical statues, it seems, to now going after statues of Jesus Christ, which they label as white supremacist. If this seems like mission creep, well, it's not. It's actually all going according to plan. As JBS CEO Art Thompson pointed out in his book, To the Victor Go the Myths and Monuments, the organizations that have influenced our country for over 230 years have had two basic ends in mind: to change us into a socialist one-world system and to proclaim that God is dead. History bears out that when communists organize to take over a country, they try to remove God from every aspect of life, as well as to try to erase the history of the country, all in an effort to remake culture and society. Now, this is what we mean when we say that mission creep has not set in for these protesters and their movement. Again, the issue is never the issue. The issue is always revolution, at least according to those involved in communist activities. The founder of the John Birch Society, Mr. Robert Welch, repeatedly said in his speeches and conversations to staff and members that there will come a day when the agenda of the communists will be so apparent to the general public that it will be akin to these communists running naked in the streets. The communist agenda is no longer hidden. It is and has been on full display, especially in Congress, since the election of the Squad in 2018. Another blatant display was recently discovered from a Real News Network interview with Patrisse Cullors, one of the three founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. She was very open about being a trained Marxist. The interview discussed the movement and how the ideology of Black Lives Matter seems to have lost its way. She explained,
"The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we really try to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many Black folk."
Marxists are trained to use class, race, religion, or any difference really, to pit people against one another as a way to foment chaos, ushering in government solutions which just happen to incorporate a portion of the radical left's agenda. This training is reinforced when hearing Ms. Cullors' definition of what she meant by black. She answered,
Black to me is both about a race that's been constructed, but it's also a political statement. It's a political framework. And I think it's important as we are building out this movement for Black liberation that we in the Black Lives Matter movement allow for necessary debate to come up around how we use the term and who's using the term and when it's used, and why it's an important point to sort of build people together. And I think it's specifically important when it comes to how the U.S. is very clever at turning other groups white, right, and making them white. And we've seen that throughout history when groups were not white and when the white power structure was threatened, they figured out a way to make groups white. And I think as we move forward, we have to figure out political alignments that hold Blackness as a broader framework than just sort of the skin we're in, but as a political statement.
That's a fascinating revelation of how she, as a founder of Black Lives Matter, plans to use race, or a construct of that race, to get what the movement wants politically. she mentioned that the movement is a movement for black liberation. This black liberation movement has been around since at least the 1960s, when the country previously saw a sharp increase in riots, looting, destruction, and violence stemming from far-left radical groups pushing for black liberation. One of these leading groups of black liberation back then was the Black Panthers. In 2015, another co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, wrote glowingly about Assata Shakur on the Black Lives Matter website and how much Ms. Shakur had contributed to the Black liberation movement. According to the New American Magazine, Ms. Shakur is a convicted bank robber/murderer who escaped from prison in 1979 and fled to communist Cuba, where she is believed to be still living. Shakur was a leader of the Black Liberation Army, an ultra-violent splinter faction of the Black Panther Party that adopted Marxist-Leninist doctrine as interpreted by Mao Zedong, China's mass-murdering dictator, as its guiding philosophy and killing police officers as its main task. Cop killer/bank robber/fugitive Shakur, who has been a darling of the hardcore Marxist-Leninist activists for decades, is now being mainstreamed as the ideological elder stateswoman for the new generations of demonstrators who are learning to loot and riot in the name of racial justice and social justice. According to the predecessor of the New American Magazine, The American Opinion, they reported in June of 1968 that the Black Liberation Front, a violent international organization pushing for black liberation around the globe, was accused of planning to blow up American national monuments in 1965. A black police officer from New York had infiltrated the group and exposed these plans before the group could carry them out. So the targeting of monuments by the radical left is nothing new, and neither is the current push by these same groups for a black liberation movement that has been renamed Black Lives Matter. Americans need to know what's really behind these riots so they do not give in to the radical demands of organizers. The New American Special Report of July 6 was just published and is available to help you expose these radical elements. You'll not see this type of information come out of the big media. It's the organization of the John Birch Society with more than 60 years of anti-communist experience that gives you such in-depth knowledge and a national plan to take back our country. One easy way to get active is to read and share this issue with others. We've made it simple to do so. We are giving away the PDF of this magazine issue, so merely give us some contact information and we'll email you a link directly to it. Feel free to pass this along to others or share the sign-up page with them. We've also printed a limited run of the physical issue, so get them while you can. If you order a case of these, you can get the issues for 90 cents each. As states are releasing their lockdowns, take advantage of church and community functions, events, and activities to hand out this information. Reference the issue in letters to the editor, talk radio call-ins, social media comments, or submitting comments on related online articles. Then use our online legislative alert to tell Congress and President Trump to say no to police reform measures. All links are in the video description. May we count on you being active? Until next time, this is Bill Hahn for the John Birch Society saying stay active, everyone.